Yo, what is going on, guys? Jack here, and welcome to episode 9 of my Tracksuit to the Top series, here with Lewis FC, and today we kick off as Conference South campaign in the Vanarama Conference with a Scroll South graphic, because my graphics back's out of date, but let's go beyond that. Today I have you guys for the first game of the season. It's been an interesting pre-season, one that has involved a little bit of rejigging, a little bit of reworking. We have changed our squad a little bit. We've kept the key players in there, but certainly looking to push onwards and upwards with the team at our disposal. So I guess with pre-season, probably the most interesting thing to talk about is the tactics, so we'll talk about that first. I'm actually going to leave Matthew Lewis to last, so we'll start off with Jamie Horncastle. This guy, 17 years old, young English centre-back, good little player, played for Brighton but was released at the end of last season. As you can see, he's joined us here on a free transfer. He's on pretty small wages of £100 a week. Good little player. Next player is Jack Rohurst, and this guy, 17 again, another player got released by Brighton. Lewis is geographically near Brighton, and particularly when you're in the lower leagues like this, you are best off going for players nearby you geographically. It's weird how FM does take that into account, and as a result, we have a fair few players coming from Brighton. Next player is Lewis Thomas. Just a useful, really little left back. Some nice mentals, good physicals, nothing amazing. The natural fitness is there, and he has the two kind of key attributes, in my opinion, for a defensive player in these lower leagues in marking and tackling. So he's a good player, and he has joined us having been a player played for Kingstonian last year for a year in the league above us. Oh, sorry, the same league as us even. Next player is Josh Banton. This guy is 19 years old, just a little bit more cover at the centre-back position. Not the best in the air, but he has some nice pace. As you can see, he got released by Southend, having gone on loan to Chesham. Did okay while he was on loan at them in the Southern Premier, which is the one tier below the Vanarama South where we are. But nevertheless, a good little player. And the next two players coming on loan from Colchester. Billy Roast is the first. He's a good little centre-back with some nice physicals. Really like the stamina and natural fitness, but he's got some good strength, acceleration and pace to go with that. And the other player we have is Thomas Lapsley, who is 19 years old, just a centre mid, and as I said, he joins us on loan from Colchester, who are our newly formed, that's not the right word, but they're our first affiliates. So we have them as a parent club, which is very nice. It means that we've got a place where we can perhaps get one or two players in on loan, which is always useful. You can see here looking at the affiliates. Started this year, and they'll be able to send players to us on loan for free, and we'll also play them every year in a pre-season friendly. So all in all, a good deal, I think, for us, this Colchester one. It's going to allow us to bring in a few players. They're not going to be incredible, but certainly for maybe this year and a few more years, it's going to be particularly useful for us. Look at the finances. You can see the money situation here. We are minus 70k, but my wages have remained around the same as last year, despite a few of the players we've brought in. There is, of course, one more player to mention on the ins, who I missed earlier, and that was Matthew Lewis. The reason I've left this guy to last is because he's absolutely incredible. 16 years old, this guy. He's a regen. You can see his polygon here for a glance. You can see how good he is, but his finishing's incredible. Great composure, great off the ball. His dribbling lets him down just a little bit, but that's something we are going to work on. Looking at his history, he joined us on a free transfer, and I found this guy when regen day came and passed. I used my regen kind of finding technique of offering 16-year-olds trials. He was one of the players who I offered a trial to, who was regen but not at a club, and he turned me down. Upon us getting promoted, I kind of still had him on my shortlist from then. I decided to go back in for him, and I noticed that he didn't want to talk to me. And it got about 2 weeks into the kind of post-season action where we were just waiting to be promoted. And I noticed that Stoke City, Norwich City, and I think it was Crystal Palace all went in for him. They all wanted him. So I decided to go back in for him. And this time he decided he did want to talk to me. So I chatted to him, and I managed to mash out agreement with him, having promised that he could become a legend at our club and that it would be a really good move for him. I managed to convince him, and as you can see, he finds himself here. This guy's absolutely incredible. You can see, looking at the coach report, a decent player for League 2 sides. He's 16. He's going to be absolutely incredible. Hoping we can keep hold of him, because his contract is going to run for the next 2 years. However, I know that may not be easy, but hopefully he's going to be able to tear it up in this division and carry us onwards and upwards. On the outs, there's a fair few players who were at the club when I first started that I've decided to let go. Some of these players I'm a little bit disappointed to see. You've got players like Fagami, who certainly helped last year, but he wanted a decent kind of wage rise this year, which I just wasn't willing to give him. And although he did play a lot for us, he only averaged a 6.81 average rating. There are a few of the players there that you'll probably recognise as players who played for us a fair bit, but you know what? They're not going to be good enough for this division. Some of them were on fairly hefty wages, and despite the fact we've already brought in a few players, we've managed to kind of cut the wage budget, or at least keep it largely at what it was last year, and a lot of that came down to releasing a lot of the kind of excess weight. So looking at the overall squad balance, we have players to pretty much play every position, which is what you'd hope for. We've got 2 keepers, nice selection of centre-backs and full-backs at both sides. In midfield, we have loads of cover, and up front we also continue to have that cover. So I'm very happy with that. Look at the squad depth, you can kind of get an idea here that we do certainly have strength in depth. So anyway, looking at our starting 11 for this season, this is what I consider to be our best starting 11. I'm not going to run down the entire squad, but just to kind of refresh your guys' memory. So in goal we have Ricky Banks, who's a 27-year-old goalkeeper. Was here when I started at the club, had a very good year last year. I kept 11 clean sheets. It is worth noting, however, we do have Craig Mullen, who was a regen we picked up, who is a very good keeper and will more than likely replace Ricky, if it's not this year, certainly next year, because he has the potential to be a lot better than Ricky, and I want to give youth a chance here. At the back, it's pretty much the same team as last year, with the exception of the centre-back. We have brought in Billy Roast, who is one of the loanees we've got from Colchester. He's a good player, and I already touched upon him a little bit, and he has replaced Gary Elphick in the starting team. Gary's a great player, but with only 5 acceleration and 7 pace, it's always going to be a hindrance to us. So keeping Roast, and then alongside him we have Tawak, who of course we signed last year, who's a very pacey player. I'm hoping these two are really going to be able to forge a good partnership. Neither of them the best defensively, but they're both incredibly fast, or at least fairly fast, and both useful in the air. At right back we stick with Muggeridge, who of course was at the club last year. The right back's a very good player, was one of our standout performers. And at left back we do stick with Stephen Page, who's another very useful player. Moving into the midfield, it's actually the same midfield with the exception of Latsley that kind of ended last season. So in left midfield, we go with Sam Cole. He got a lot of assists last year and even more goals. 14 goals. If he can retain that kind of goal-scoring record in this division, not only would I be surprised, but I'd be very impressed. In centre-back we go with Lapsley, who I of course signed from Colchester on loan. We then go with Ben Bacon, the 10 out of 10 girl. If you don't get that reference, you missed an episode, but he's amazing. He's fast. He has great personality. Last year, he made 7 appearances towards the end of the year and averaged a 7.6 rating, which was superb. And then right midfielder, one of last year's kind of breakthrough players, is Joe Robinson. In fact, he only played the last 8 games in the league for us, but in that time he got 4 goals and 3 assists and had a fantastic average rate, just like Ben Bacon. I'm hoping these two alongside each other on the right-hand side of the midfield are really going to contribute and hopefully be players who can stick in the team for a long time. Finally, up front, I stick with Darian Nevin, who of course was one of our better players last year when he was fit. Of course, he did suffer a few injuries, but he did get 17 goals in 26 appearances. Sticking with him starting, and he will start alongside our new kind of star player in Matthew Lewis, who is an absolutely incredible striker, and I'm hoping, as I mentioned before, he's going to be able to tear things up in this division. So looking at the Vanarama Conference, just so you guys can see the season preview, we are currently expected to finish 12th, which is kind of generous, but I guess that gives you an idea of how well we've done for ourselves in the transfer window and the build-up to this. Looking at key players, it's Joe Robinson and Matthew Lewis, who are our kind of players to watch. Kind of agree with that. Both these players are players who are going to be important for us. One up front, one on the right wing. Looking for Robinson really to kick on and continue from where he left off last season, and that's a general trend across this entire team. I've kept quite a lot of faith in our team from last year. You know, we've had players like Roast, Lapsley and Matthew Lewis come in, but we've not added a load and kind of a wealth of talent. I very much look to stick with what we know and the players that we have, and I'm hoping that that faith is going to be repaid. Anyway, Lewis Thomas is unfortunately suspended for us, so Craig Mullen will come onto the bench. All in all, though, I'm very happy with the squad, very happy with the signing of Matthew Lewis. He's going to be incredible up front for us, I think. I'm very curious to see how Darian Neven's going to get on. Although he only has 2-star current ability in this division, that or rather for us in this division, that's still a fairly useful rating, and he's still going to be a very good player. One thing I did change this pre-season was our staff. I really went hard on kind of revamping the staff that I had at my disposal, simply because it was something that, whilst I had okay staff, it really wasn't adequate for where I want us to go. You can see here, looking at our coaching setup, really improved in all categories, kind of our overall coverage. Fitness lets us down, but that's my own fault because I'm a terrible coach. But with the exception of that, you can see that we are pretty well covered. Alex Fidesz, I don't know, Fidesz, we'll go with it. Sounds fancy, doesn't it? Alex Fidesz, that's not how you say his name, Jack. Anyway, he is my assistant manager. He's pretty decent. I love his judging player ability and potential, because that's going to influence how accurate our ability and potentials are shown here on the squad page, which I know is always helpful for you guys. The other big person who I kind of added behind the scenes who I think is going to be useful is this guy, Joe, last name I'm not even going to try and say, but he is our head of youth development, and with 17 working with youngsters and 16 judging player potential, the very good attributes. They're the key attributes for how good the regens are that get produced in your youth side in terms of what your head of youth development kind of, I guess, brings to the table on that front. So he's a very good player in that regard, or a very good coach in that regard, and he's going to be a useful player, I think. So anyway, that's the staff. As you can see, staff team hasn't grown in size too much. I've just replaced what was already there with some vast improvements. So yeah, we are going to get into today's game, and we are going to be taking on Basingstoke. So they are top of the league on alphabetical order. Don't read obviously too much into that because it's alphabetical order, but just a quick look at where they're predicted to finish in the league. They're expected to finish 18th, so hopefully we can get a win here, as we are going to be at home. Not going to be an easy start to the season by any means, but I'm hoping that we can get off on the right foot and hopefully hit the ground running. I am going to be sticking with the 4-4-2 that served us very well last year. Of course, we did get loads of goals last season. Not so great on the defensive front. I mean, we weren't terrible, but we did average, I believe, conceding more than a goal a game, or thereabouts. It'd be nice to shore things up a little bit more at the back, but I think with the attacking tactic that we're kind of going with here, it's always going to be tricky. I am looking for a big performance out of Matthew Lewis, for Lewis, of course, our League 2 quality striker. So no pressure on him, but I am going to keep him highlighted here because I think he's the one to watch, as we almost concede within 2 minutes. That was a real opportunity for them, but riding our luck a little there. But yes, Matthew Lewis for Lewis. I'm looking for him to work some magic for us in the final third. Really excited about him as a prospect. I think he could be an incredible player, but only time will tell if my inkling is correct. But I mean, based off what you can see of him in his attributes, he's going to be superb for us in this division, but I'm hoping he's going to be able to improve with the club. As Nevin, was it Nevin got a touch there? No, Joe Robinson scored a cross to Nevin. Not going to complain. He is one of our better players, Robinson, of course, a player who we picked up at the end of last season. And he has scored a cross here. I don't know if the striker would have got there. I'm pretty sure he would have done if he didn't decide not to jump. But it's a cheeky little lob finish in the end, intentional or not. And it gives us a lead here against Basingstoke, which I'm not going to complain one little bit about, because it's going to be tricky. I talked a little bit about this last episode, but going into the Conference North and South, I'm never really sure what to make of my team. I kind of feel like we've got some good players, but I guess we'll be able to have a better understanding of how good we're actually going to be once we are kind of 10 games in. That'll be a good reflection. However, from what I can see here, we are looking very good as Matthew Lewis scores on his debut. Perhaps not the star goal I envisaged from him, but I'll tell you what, if he can slot them in from 6 yards for the rest of the season, we will be very well off with his presence. Interesting to see Henry Muggeridge with a knock. I'm actually going to take him off just because we are 2-0 up. Whilst I wouldn't normally like to change ourselves around defensively, at 2-0 up we have a little bit of a cushion. I'm hoping that the players can kind of step up and make up for his absence, but I really don't want to aggravate the injury if it is serious any more than I need to, and right now with the cushion I don't kind of feel like it's worth the risk keeping him on the pitch. But anyway, Nevin here, Lewis threads him through, he can only find the side netting. So close for him. I really want Darian Nevin to step up here because he was so good for us last year, having come for us from Charlton, being released. It'd be a great story for him if he could really step up, as he will score it. It's offside. I'm not even going to begin to celebrate. That was a weird set of deflections there, but it was offside. But it's good to see him getting in the opportunities and the positions to score. Although he's now got a knock, and because I don't want to risk injury because of his terrible injury record, I'm going to sub him off. I didn't realise, but it does seem that in this division you're only allowed 5 players on the bench. So I'm going to need to think about that a little bit carefully, because obviously I'm used to having 7 players on the bench, so it might impact who I can actually have to come on off the bench. So that's something to rethink. I hadn't really considered that, but Basingstoke will score though to make it 2-1. This could be a nervy last few minutes. Hopefully it's not going to be the start of a downward spiral here. I'm hoping we can hold on to this lead. I'm actually going to switch our system around just a tiny bit, just so players are playing in their kind of preferred areas. Although as I say this, stuff's going on in the background and they've actually scored again. Well, that's bloody tragic, because now it's 2-2. We're going to need a comeback here. I didn't even get to see that second goal because I was too busy making tactical changes. Pro tip, pause your game when you make tactical changes or stuff like that happens. That is completely my own fault. Thought I could nip in and make the tactical changes quicker than the game would end. I was wrong. Lewis, you've got a chance here, maybe late on. We're into the last few minutes. This would be a late goal. Unfortunately, keeper's going to gobble that up. That's going to be 2-2. A little bit of a disappointing way to finish this episode and kick off the season, because we were 2-0 up. I did sub off defenders, and I don't like to do that because it can kind of sometimes upset the balance. However, at the same time, if it avoided serious injury, perhaps it might be worth it in the long run. However, unfortunately, that is going to be a little bit disappointing, especially the manner in which we lost. However, good to see Lewis making a great impact. The Doncaster-born striker scoring on his debut. Hopefully he can continue with that, because I think he's got a bright career ahead of us at the club. Hopefully, if we can keep hold of him, but I have a feeling teams may come sniffing around. But time will tell. Hopefully you guys will stick around for the next episode. I'm not sure when it's going to be. I'm going to kind of wait for the league to pan out, maybe see what big teams we've got coming up. Hopefully you're looking forward to that. Maybe let me know what you thought of my summer transfers. Let me know if you've ever made the mistake of forgetting to pause your game when you're making changes. If you've enjoyed the video, smash the like button. If you're new here, subscribe to the channel. And other than that, guys, it is me, Jack. Thank you so much for watching as always, and I'll talk to you guys in a bit. I'm out.